Today, we're blessed with an article from CBR in which a grown man, possibly heterosexual, but don't you dare quote me on it, claims that Street Fighter VI has the opportunity to fix the series' greatest sin, which is having attractive women in fighting games. Shocking, I know. And yet, this has all the familiar signs of a particular kind of man writing a particular kind of article trying to get a particular kind of reaction. The brunt of the article is basically a means of calling out Capcom for the design and continued relevance of its designs of female characters, one character in particular, Cammy White, aka Killer B, former Shadowloo doll, and current member of a British paramilitary group known as Delta Red. The writer here seems to make the argument that Cammy's costume is a huge problem for the character.
Ridiculously, Cammy's most defining feature is not her personality or fighting prowess, it's her thong. Cammy's signature outfit consists of a turtleneck leotard with military boots and gauntlets. It makes sense for Cammy to wear something comfortable that allows her unencumbered mobility, but her exposed backside is a step too far.
Now, if you do a Google search on open back leotards, they actually are quite commonly worn by gymnasts and figure skaters. So how is this too far? What's even more interesting is he must have read my original rebuttal to concede to this argument that the costume is for unencumbered mobility. But of course, that concession will obviously come back to haunt him. But first, let's continue to peer into the mind of a certified madman.
Women have the right to wear whatever they want, and everyone should be able to express themselves in any way they choose, free of judgment or harassment. Cammy may be a fictional character and doesn't possess the sentience to choose what she wears, but the decisions behind her outfit are highly suspect. It's ridiculous to think that wearing just a thong during high-stakes street brawls, while performing spiral arrows and dodging fireballs, makes any kind of sense.
Holy jeez, that's a bad argument. And from the looks of it, the writer seems to lack creativity as well, but that is par for the course. Lack of sentience is not the issue here, due to when creating a fictional character, you also develop that character's personality, and their clothes are often a reflection of that personality. It's the reason why in the earlier games, Ryu and Ken wear the same gi, but with different colors. The white signifies simple, traditionally pure mindset, while the red indicates a more fiery, aggressive demeanor, which further explains the paths that both characters take in later games. Likewise, Cammy's outfit is both form, function, and a display of personality. But let's talk a bit about the realism argument, because that's another issue that I tend to see in discussions surrounding fictional characters. Marrying this idea of realistic depictions in the fantastical, dodging fireballs and performing spiral arrows, is the fantasy. So in a fantasy setting, one can clearly wear whatever they want and it would still fit within the scenario. Forcing realism into fantasy tells me more about a person's lack of imagination than their supposed male feminist ideals. It also has me questioning your motives out of pure instinct, but that seems to be justified with this next statement.
Cammy's design is decided upon by a group of Capcom game developers who are mostly men. This leaves a very bad taste in the mouth, and it begs the question, what are their motives? Are they doing it to satiate their own sexual desires? Is it a running joke at Cammy's expense? Or are they doing it because of their misconception that it's what fans want? If the latter is true, it's time for the FGC to make Capcom understand that the hypersexualization of female characters isn't acceptable.
Now, this excuse for a paragraph is what we in the business call begging the question, which is a logical fallacy that makes the accusation appear to be the truth without providing any evidence to prove that. In layman's terms, this entire statement is trying to imply that Capcom's designers are at fault for the writer being ashamed of himself for getting an erection. This is exactly why I'm not wasting my time on this lame statement, as it does more to show the mindset of the person writing this than provide anything of decent worth to the discussion. This rabbit hole ultimately leads to a call of action, of sorts that tries to get the FGC to pressure Capcom and other fighting game companies to push for eradicating exploitation, which of course is code for altering your game to cater to tourists who weren't really playing the games in the first place. Yeah, I see right through you activist people.
The adjustment of Cammy's outfit in Street Fighter 6 is not on par with women's suffrage or the hashtag #MeToo movement, but it's still important. Women's liberation takes many forms, as does racial equality and LGBTQ2S+ rights. Eradicating discrimination and exploitation requires the support of the majority. The FGC is male-dominated, and it's high time that fighting game fans demand that their community is a welcoming space for everyone, regardless of sex, gender, race, religion, or sexual identity. Protest can come in many forms, so players who want to get involved should write letters to game developers, use social media to demand change, boycott games that promote the sexual exploitation of women, and implore their favorite streamers to talk about it.
Since you're watching this, I will assume I'm at least one of your favorite streamers, so I'm going to say this in the best way I know how. Men and women objectify each other equally, and that's human nature in a nutshell. There, I said it. The problem is that one form of objectification is commonly denigrated, while the other form of objectification is misconstrued as some form of empowerment, which leads to high levels of cope involved in rationalizing it as a supposed good thing. Back in 2015, Capcom dropped a Street Fighter V skin for Ryu, which featured him topless and sporting a rugged full beard. The response was women losing their collective shit and nicknaming the skin Hot Ryu. Now, because I understand human nature, the act of obsessing over Hot Ryu is not the problem. That issue is people making excuses when their behavior is called out as hypocritical. For instance, this article from the Mary Sue is rife with over-analytical justification for otherwise thirsty behavior.
Almost instantly, Hot Ryu became a boyfriend character. It wasn't just that people thought his beard was cute, although they sure did, it was that he instantly got personified in a particular way. His physical appearance became secondary to the meme almost instantly, in spite of being the element that had theoretically kicked it off. I would guess that this is due to the fact that women and queer people already are used to framing personality as core to sexiness. Refer to Garus, once more. The meme became less of a celebration of Ryu's beard in particular, and more about a rallying call for the idea of a sexy video game man, and what that fantasy might entail. For example, Nico of Justice Points told me that she didn't find the Ryu design to be physically attractive. But she still participated in the meme. It wasn't really about his looks, he was still granted agency via most of the meme tweets by constructing a personality from what is perceived to be good traits from men. When I asked my friends about their thoughts on the meme, they compared it to the meme's feminist Ryan Gosling and feminist Mad Max. The latter is a similar example of a fictional guy who seems to have feminist values. It's clear from the mythos of Street Fighter that gender equality has been achieved. Plus, the world of the game supposes that everybody has magic powers that would allow men and women to compete in balanced battle.
So you're saying that you were not fawning over the image of a hot man in a beard, but the idea of a hot man in a beard being boyfriend material? And of course, fantasizing an entire scenario where you're in a relationship with said guy and trying to change them into what you want them to be. That's pretty pathetic. Like living alone with multiple cats and singing "Someday My Prince Will Come" pathetic. What's also interesting to note is that the first article had a writer making the assumption that some seedy room full of perverts came up with Cammy's original design and were using it for some form of sexual gratification. The truth is, they designed a character that would represent the UK while finding a style of fighting that would complement that character. And if you were to look up the amount of gymnasts that are out there, a lot of them are attractive, so mystery solved. Meanwhile, in the more feminist spaces of the internet, you have a bunch of women altering fictional and real men to be virtual Ken dolls to fit their preference of a quote-unquote ideal male, while putting words in their mouths to say things that would uplift their otherwise fragile egos. Now, who's the real weirdo? So the next time you see some beta male try to make an argument of having members of the FGC run to pressure Capcom into altering designs to make him and other people on the internet who don't even play the games they're whining about happy, politely tell them to fuck off back to the gutters of the internet where they belong. Thank you, and I will see you next boss fight.